What's going on, guys? Welcome to another edition of Analytically Correct. I'm here at Public House with Stretch on University, connected to Shamrock Liquors. Thank you guys for watching. Next to me is not Rob. He's actually pulling a Jalen Ramsey. He called in sick and he requested a trade. So yeah, we're trying to figure out if he wants to leave the Bundesliga and head over to the other podcast that's yet to be started. But actually, that's not true. I just tied in well with the Jalen Ramsey thing that's going on. The real story is actually a lot funnier than that. He apparently, I don't think he'd be mad if I told this story, right? He apparently, we get a message, and we do this every day, usually around 5. We got a message in the group chat, and he says, sorry guys, I apparently blacked out last night, and I bought tickets to a New York Yankees game. Obviously, he's a Yankees fan. He said, I blacked out and I bought tickets to the Yankees game in Tampa. He said, I saw a $340 charge on my card, and he goes to find out what the charge is, and apparently he bought 2 tickets to the Yankees game tonight. I think it's like 7 o'clock. I think it starts in like a half an hour. They're playing the Rays, and he bought tickets. He bought tickets 7 rows behind home plate. So it must have been a good night for him. I mean, if I woke up like that, I would have tried to sell the tickets. I mean, good for him for going to the game. And it shows how much I've been paying attention to baseball lately, because I had to look it up and had to ask Stretch, and neither of us knew off the top of our heads, but the Rays are actually they're half a game ahead of the Indians in the wild card race. So pretty much for 2 tickets for $340, he got seats 7 rows behind home plate to go see what amounts for the Rays to almost to be a playoff game as far as this series go. Not where I thought we would start after week 3 of the NFL as far as like Rays Yankees, that whole thing. And it's kind of ironic too, because he told Stretch and I on the podcast, it had to be like about a month ago at this point, but he told Stretch and I, like, and he told you guys too if you were watching, he said pretty much there's no need to watch baseball anymore because the Yankees are going to win the World Series. So ironically, we don't need to watch, but he spent $340 on tickets to go watch. So yeah, take it as what it is. So it's just gonna be me right now this week. So if you tuned in for Rob, you can go ahead and tune out now. Hopefully that's not the case. We'll see how this thing goes. I'm probably gonna go off on a couple different tangents, but I'm gonna start off with college football. I'm sure everybody knows I'm a Michigan fan, and if you know anything about anything that happened in college football this weekend, we pretty much got destroyed by Wisconsin, and it's one of those games, and I'll get to my overall takeaways as far as everyone wants to know, oh, should you fire Jim Harbaugh? What is Jim Harbaugh on the hot seat? That's for a couple minutes from now. Basically, my takeaways from the game, there's ways to lose games where it's like a heartbreaker, like UCF, who also lost this week. Oh yeah, my mom's in Iceland. Yes, thanks. Hi Mom. Thank you for watching. Such a good boy. But yeah, so pretty much there's ways to lose a game. Like UCF lost this week as well, which kind of sucks for the people around here. I mean, at that point, Michigan had already lost earlier in the day, so I was literally walking around work saying, "Yes, everyone suffer like me." So all the UCF fans that worked at my job really loved me that day, because they were talking shit about Michigan and everything, losing and whatever. And I'm just walking around every time Pittsburgh scores. I'm like, yes, everyone suffer like me. But yeah, so you can lose how they did, as like it happens sometimes. Like in college football, there's upsets every single week, and UCF is not the kind of team where it's like they're guaranteed to go on the road and win. I think they were favored by like 11 or 12 points. That's nothing in college football. If you watched the UCLA-Washington State game, which as a degenerate, I got home from work and I'm like, what can I still bet on right now? I wasn't even watching the games like, oh, I really want to watch some football. I'm like, what can I bet on right now? It's midnight. And UCLA-Washington State was there for me. I just took the team that was getting plus odds, so I put like $10 to win 35. They scored, I think, at one point, Washington State scored 4 unanswered touchdowns. And then after that, UCLA scored 4 unanswered touchdowns. In the last, 4 minutes of the game, if nobody watched it, which why would you unless you're up late and you're betting on it? And who does things like that? This guy. It was an insane game. It was probably like one of the best games you'll watch all season. That nobody probably watched because, like I said, nobody watches football at 3. It ended at 3:30 in the morning. What is that? That's not even a thing that happens. Nobody's watching football at 3 o'clock in the morning. Yeah, exactly. Stretch said he is. I definitely am. But like I said, it's not because I love football and I'm a football fan, which I am. It's just like I have a problem. Like, what can I bet on right now? And Washington State was there for me. That game was insane. Getting, like I said, tangents, getting back from that to UCF. UCF's not the kind of team who is going to go on the road and just dominate. And losses like that happen. I mean, Pittsburgh's not a great team, but when your coach goes for it on 4th down and shows no respect at all to Pittsburgh, which it's Pittsburgh, so I don't know if they technically deserve the respect, but UCF kind of reaped what they sowed as far as there were times when they could have kicked a field goal on 4th and 1 and you go up 9. Instead, you go for it. I mean, if you get it, you win the game. But as we saw, they lost and you gave the other team an opportunity. Everyone likes to play Monday morning quarterback or, as tonight's case, Tuesday night quarterback, where you second guess the coach and everything like that. But if he would have gotten it and they would have won, everyone's like, oh, congratulations, like you should be doing stuff like that. We talked about it last week when Denver was going for 2, and it depends on your quarterback and it depends on the situation. If it's Flacco, you shouldn't do it probably. If it's UCF, I mean, you're against Pittsburgh on the road and you get a first down for 1 yard, you're not expecting Pittsburgh to go down and score with 30 seconds left. Which UCF actually still had a chance to win that game after Pittsburgh scored. I was telling everybody, like, it's college football. You don't have to, and it's easy when it's not your team to say, like, don't panic, don't worry. But everyone's freaking out, and I'm like, it's college football. They have 55 seconds. The clock stops when you get a first down, and they have to go, 35 yards to be in field goal range. And obviously it didn't work out, but that's what happens when you gamble and it doesn't win. And it stinks for UCF's sake because they're also not the kind of team who can afford to lose a game. Getting back to once UCF loses a game, everyone knows this. They have had seasons that we all know about where they didn't lose a game and they still didn't get in. It kind of gave the college football playoff committee a bit of a bye this year, in my opinion, because what if they would have gone undefeated again? And they played some decent teams. They played a Stanford team that was down, but it's still Stanford. It's still a name. Pittsburgh is still a team that, while they're not necessarily a top-tier team in their conference, they still have a name. It's not like you're playing Alabama. You look every week. They're playing Alcorn State or something like that. And it's fine. It's just schedule a bye week then. What are you even doing this for? We were talking about it with if Dominique Foxworth had a problem with the Dolphins tanking so blatantly and so obviously. And his issue was you're making it unsafe for the players that you are putting out there because they're not actually pro players. They wouldn't start for most teams. So you're Alabama and you're scheduling a team like Alcorn State. What's the difference of Alabama playing Alcorn State from New England playing the Dolphins or the Ravens playing the Dolphins? So, I mean, just schedule a bye week or schedule a real team. How about that? And all that's to say, to kind of put a bow on the UCF season, you're not going to – I talked to one of my friends at work, and he's like, well, maybe we can get a New Year's Six bowl. And I was like, He's like, well, Michigan can get one too. I'm like, no offense, but I'm a Michigan fan. I'm not hoping for a New Year's Six bowl where we don't start any of our players and we lose to Florida, and then I got to hear about that shit for a year. As if you actually beat our top team. Half the team wasn't starting. But getting back to it, I'll sit here. I wear the shirt. I wear the hat every week, and I can't just sit here and not talk about the Michigan game, which hopefully at this point I still have to tag everything on Facebook to tag people, but hopefully people aren't actually watching it. Once I post it, then they'll start watching. So I'll get the Michigan stuff out of the way now. And don't worry, don't go back and rewatch the beginning because I'm going to talk about it now. I got into the point of UCF's loss was kind of like a heartbreaking loss. Michigan's loss was the other type, where there's two scenarios. Either Jim Harbaugh didn't know about Jonathan Taylor and that they were going to feed it to him and run him 40 times, which in that case, not good. Or the other scenario is he did know, and he did know they couldn't do that. In the other scenario, either he didn't know and that's bad, or he did know that Jonathan Taylor was going to run it down our throats 700 times. And it's kind of, he says, and in that scenario, it is also not good, because if he did know and they game planned for it and they just couldn't stop it, that just means we're not good enough. Either scenario is not good. Either way, we lost, and that's the kind of loss where your defense can't stop the run, which is almost like the most demoralizing loss, because you're just watching yourself, like Marshawn Lynch said, you just run through a motherfucker's face. You just do it over and over and over again, and some people aren't going to be able to take that. In the great words of the Skittle God, Marshawn Lynch. It was demoralizing. You'd almost just rather get stunned at the end than you just see your team just get pushed back on defense down the field the entire time. And as big of a fan as I am, I'm not like a homer, and I like to think I'm kind of like realistic and fair about it. So I'm not going to be like, oh, the refs screwed us over. Like, sometimes your team just loses. Sometimes your team's just not good enough. But we had the talent to win, but Jim Harbaugh said it after the game, and I kind of hate when coaches say this, like, we were out-coached and outplayed. It's like, well, then don't get out-coached by Paul Christ. How about that? I'm doing it on accident, but I'm doing this "you got" thing where I say "how about that" every time. It's just like in my subconscious now. It's just like, how about that? How about that? It's actually a very useful device. It's like an exclamation point on your take. But it was demoralizing, and then the season's going to be over. As far as I'm still going to watch the games and stuff like that. There were some bad calls. Like I said, I'm not going to blame it on the refs, but the Ronnie Bell catch was definitely a catch. I mean, a bunch of people on Twitter were, not that Twitter is like the barometer for what's true and what's false, but it was a catch, whatever. I mean, and then it's the same thing when the Saints complain about the pass interference call. And then you also had like 10 minutes of game time after that where you could have won the game. They called a Ronnie Bell catch a non-catch, and then immediately after that it was 4th down, we punted, then Jonathan Taylor runs for 72 yards. It is what it is, season's over. I say that only in the sense that Michigan, unlike UCF, is a team based on reputation that if we ran the table for the rest of the season, we could still make the college football playoff. I do believe that. I don't believe that we're going to run the table. We play Penn State, I think, on the road. We still play Ohio State, which also, I mean, come on, schedule somebody. But we play them at home, but, I mean, if we can't beat Wisconsin, we're not good enough to be in the playoff anyways. And if we're not good enough to be in there, then I'd rather, I mean, if you're, I saw a headline today that said, can Wisconsin, in the age of passing, rush their way to a college football national championship? No. Everybody knows if they play Clemson or if they play Alabama, like I thought Michigan's defense was, these are defenses where they're basically their defensive lines are basically NFL defensive lines, and that's after sending a wave of defensive linemen to the NFL, especially if you're in the case of Clemson. So I don't know if that's enough on it. We suck. Our season's over. Everyone can be happy and make fun of me. That's fine. I talked about the Washington State UCLA game. I talked about the UCF loss. The Georgia Notre Dame game, I kind of was surprised because I thought Georgia would pull away more. They were favored by 14.5, and I don't remember the final score off the top of my head. But Notre Dame kept it closer than I thought, and they have a big game as well this week. So that's pretty much all I had for college football. We're still waiting to get into the conference play and everything like that. And in conference play is when you find out like who teams actually really are. You're not gonna find anything. You keep bringing up the point of Alcorn State and Alabama. It's like, we get it. You're Alabama. You're good. We don't need to see you win like 72-0. And not even do you just destroy them. You destroy the spread too. So you can't make a spread high enough. What is that? Yeah, it's yeah. But getting into the NFL, I'm gonna kind of recap last week for the NFL, and just there's some games that I had takeaways from, and there's some games you can kind of skip over, and it's like, wow, I didn't really need to watch that. I have a setup at my house, so I have the red zone on the TV, and then I have on the laptop like whichever game I think is going to be like the most entertaining or the best game. So I have the red zone on the TV, and then this week I had the Ravens and the Chiefs on the laptop, and that game was really awesome. But I think the game that kind of surprised me. That game was good and it didn't surprise me. You have Lamar Jackson going against Patrick Mahomes. The game that kind of surprised me as far as being good, Giants-Buccaneers. You have the Giants, 2 takeaways from that game. Saquon gets hurt, and then somehow they still come back. And the somehow in that is Daniel Jones. Dave Gettleman, who is the general manager for the Giants, just dunked on everybody. If you're out there, raise your hand if you thought Daniel Jones was a good pick at number 6. And if you're raising your hand right now, then you're a liar, because every single person in the world was laughing at the Giants when they picked Daniel Jones. Oh, Daniel Jones, who the hell is that? Half the people were like, who's this guy? It also didn't help Daniel Jones's case that he looks like Eli Manning's like other brother, who's not Peyton Manning. I have no idea what the hell he's talking about. At least you're not a Jets fan. I'm a Lions fan, which I can't even hold that up anymore because we're technically undefeated. We're one Kyler Murray comeback away from being 3-0. And not to get away from Daniel Jones so quickly, I have plenty of time to transition around to the Lions game and the fact that I still think we suck and we're 2-0-1, whatever. He is a Manning. Daniel Jones is an honorary Manning now. There was a lot of talk about Eli Manning being like the consummate professional, like, oh, he's like doing this and doing that, and it's like, yeah, I get it. That's fine. I mean, that's good. You could go the Ben Roethlisberger route where you say you're not going to help the guy out, and then you get injured, and then you say it. So, Michigan blue, yes, I know. Well, at least I still wore my stuff on the podcast this week. I could have easily just come in here and just like had my work shirt on. Like, I don't know, we're not going to really talk about college football. I don't know if there's time. At least I didn't lose money on the game. That's all I'll say. Because I saw the +3 and I was like, I don't know about this. But yeah, Daniel Jones, I mean, it's one game. You don't want to overreact or anything like that, but everyone says like, oh, you don't want to overreact to one game. Well, if you react to the evidence that we have, it's good so far. Like, it's better than being bad. There were a bunch of backup quarterbacks that started this week. Kyle Allen, he was pretty good for the Panthers. I heard some people out there actually saying that it was an upgrade because obviously he's not better than Cam, but he's better than Cam when Cam's not healthy, which seems like it's been for like the last 2 years. The Fab 5 jersey. College basketball is coming back. I'm excited about that. I got really excited about the NBA season coming up. I'm sure we'll get into that more. And I wanted to do some baseball, but Rob knows more about baseball than me, obviously, because honestly, once your team loses 109 games in a season, it kind of is demoralizing. Like, how many losses? Once you take that over and over and over again, the Tigers have just like Marshawn Lynched me in the face as far as like caring about baseball. But we still have like a week left. There's like 5 or 6 games, I think, until the playoffs start. So we'll do that more next week. I don't know how qualified I am. I mean, I could make some stuff up and pick someone to win. I'm actually kind of rooting for the Yankees to lose tonight. I think that would be kind of funny for Rob. Go there and pay the money and then they lose. I'm kind of secretly rooting for it to be like 13-0 Rays in the first inning, and he's just like driving back like, God damn it. I mean, at least if he's there, he can go to the casino before he comes back or make a trip out of it or something. But we'll have to check the score on that one. But I just can't imagine doing that. Waking up and there's a $340 charge, and it's like, oh, I bought tickets to the Michigan-Ohio State game in Michigan, and I have to request off work now, and it's like $400. I would have had to like try to resell them or something. But yeah, Daniel Jones, and fair enough if everyone's out there and they're saying, oh, it's against Tampa Bay's defense. Tampa Bay's defense is trash, and that's fine, that's true. But it's still a rookie quarterback, and he's on the road in a tough spot without their best player, Saquon Barkley, and he made a Giants game interesting to watch that didn't have Odell Beckham in it, that didn't have Saquon Barkley in it. And it was almost like, it reminded me of last year when Baker Mayfield came in the Browns game. And it was before halftime, though. He didn't start the game. But as soon as he came in, you can kind of see the team respond. Like, there was like an electricity where it's like, okay, we actually have a chance. And the same kind of thing with Kyle Allen. And there's a funny anecdote out there right now. I don't know who gets credit or whatever. You guys can look it up and give credit to whoever said it. But apparently the Giants got energized when, and this just speaks to like the Eli Manningness and just like how this guy looks, like your overall general white guy face. He goes into the huddle, and apparently he said like he said fuck or something like that. Like he cursed in the huddle, and it was like, oh wow, this guy's serious. Like we've never heard this before. It's like Tiger Woods and Chappelle show. He's like, for shizzle. He's like, let's get this fucking first down. And apparently that energized the team. So take that for what you will. That's just a story that's out there. I don't feel like it's made up, and I also feel like it's hilarious. As far as money goes, never bet on the Buccaneers. I don't know. I told Stretch earlier, like I say so much stuff, and I have such a bad memory and everything that I don't often take my own advice. So I'll say something on here, and I'll be like, oh, definitely take like the Seahawks minus the 7, and then I'll bet the other side and I'll lose. And I'm like, I literally didn't take my own advice. So if I'm not taking my own advice, I don't really recommend that you do. Other takeaways. Well, yeah, okay. So the Saquon Barkley injury. I mean, we knew that the Giants weren't going to win the Super Bowl this year. Anyways, I hate to break it to you, Stretch, but I don't think that they were going to win the Super Bowl.
Got a chance.
I mean, yeah, they got a chance, right? They got a chip in a chair, and they got a quarterback. But if it winds up that Daniel Jones is good and they picked him 6th overall, it's not going to matter. I mean, at the same time, you can say, well, they obviously could have traded back and they could have gotten him later, but whatever. If you wind up drafting the next quarterback that's going to be your franchise quarterback at 6, nobody's going to care. And it's one of those things where I'm just going to start doing this, where everyone's saying one thing and you just go the contrarian way. And if you're wrong, nobody remembers. But if you're right, you're like, I told you Daniel Jones was going to be pretty good. It's just like one of those things where you hedge your take, where it's like, these guys might be pretty good. And then if they're not, then nobody remembers. But if they are, you're like, I said it. Remember, I said it. It's like, the Bills, I don't think they're as bad as people think. It's like, okay, well, if they win one game, then they're better than people thought they were going to be. That was another interesting takeaway. I gotta check right now. I'm gonna go over, after I recap this week's games, the spreads for next week. I just love doing things by spreads, just because I love betting and everything like that. And I think it's interesting how players affect the spreads. So I asked my roommate, and I asked a couple people last week, whatever the Giants were. I think they were like getting 3 or 4 points or whatever. Once the news came out that Eli Manning was not going to start and Daniel Jones was, I'm curious whatever you think about this, Stretch. Like, do you think that added or took away from the spread? Like, do you think that they were better off for him not starting? So if they were like -3, maybe it went to like, or if they were +3, maybe it went to like +2. Like people were that down on Eli to where they thought like, oh, this guy's going to come in. We're all Gettleman now. Are you Gettle in or Gettle out? I'm Gettle in. And now, the funny thing is for Giants fans is this is just setting up next week for him to throw like 5 picks in the first half. Like a Nathan Peterman performance. Who do they play next week? I got it right here. Oh, no, never mind. They play the Redskins. It looks like the train's going to keep on rolling for Daniel Jones. Speaking of trains, and this is a professional transition, in transit last night doing birthday stuff for somebody or whatever. So I missed like the middle half of the game. But you're at home, you're against the Rams. Obviously they were in the Super Bowl last year. So they're a pretty good team and everything like that. Todd Gurley, I hate you, by the way. You clearly have the knees of an arthritic 80-year-old. But yeah, I don't know, takeaways from that game, from Browns and Rams. The 1 and 2 now are the Browns. I'm gonna look up their schedule now, but Brett was on here and then Rob. Neither of those guys believed in the hype, and I was kind of in on it. I'm like, well, you get one of the best receivers in the league. Look what he did with Eli Manning, who clearly now we see is not technically starting anymore. Or you get a couple of defensive linemen. You have Myles Garrett already. You're in a division that is losing Antonio Brown and Le'Veon Bell, and the Ravens, and also tangent. Lamar Jackson, good for that guy. When people say, "Oh, I'm not sure if he can throw," well, he's shown it so far. I mean, they lost to the Chiefs, and a lot of people are going to lose to the Chiefs this year. But he definitely, whoever that guy was, that's like, "Oh, I think he's a receiver," and he's definitely like putting it back in the faces of those people. But I have the Browns schedule here. Oh wow, okay. So the Browns are 1-2 right now. They play at the Ravens next week, at the 49ers. 2 L's so far, Stretch says. You're going west to the 49ers, who I still think they might be one of those teams that's like a pretender. You know, it's like, is it a pretender or is it for real? I think they might be a pretender. I don't know. We'll see. But either way, you're going west, and you're on the road. At home against the Seahawks. At the very least, that's a close game. The Seahawks are one of those teams where it seems like when I bet on them and they're at home, like, oh, Seahawks, they have the 12th man. It's awesome. Like, they have a home field advantage. They're a good team. They should take care of business. And they seem to somehow always fuck me. It's like, why are the Seahawks in a close game in the fourth quarter when who did they play last week? No, I don't think it was the Bengals. Damn it, it's gonna bother me now. Anyways, the Seahawks are always in games that are too close for what they actually should be, considering that they have Russell Wilson and their defense is still pretty good. And let's see. Anyways, the getting back to the Browns schedule, the Seahawks game is at least going to be a close game. I'll give you a hint on this one. At Patriots, that's an L. So far we're at L, huh? Yes, okay, yeah. So they didn't have Teddy Bridgewater, and they're on the road. Like, there's no reason the Seahawks should have been in that close of a game.
They lost.
I know, that's what I'm saying. Like, but it shouldn't even be in question. Like,
The Saints won.
I know. I'm saying it shouldn't even in the fourth quarter. Anyways, it's a gambling thing. I just hate. The Seahawks are always one of those teams where it's like, yeah, that's a good idea. Russell Wilson, Phillip Rivers always has 80 yards to go. He's down 8 with like 30 seconds left and no timeouts. And he always gets so close. At the Patriots for the Browns, at the Broncos. And the Broncos, the only person that still believes in Joe Flacco is John Elway. Whatever you think about him as a GM, I mean, Joe Flacco is not good. But still, so the Broncos defense I still think is good. It's one of those anomalies where we're going into week 4 and the Denver defense has no sacks. I think no turnovers. I think it's like no sacks, no turnovers, something like that. Where everyone thought that defense was going to be good in your fantasy leagues. They were probably like the second or third defense picked. Also a shout out to any of the traveling drunks in the league there where I was making fun of people on draft night for taking Patrick Mahomes and Lamar Jackson in the first round. And it's a 12-team league. I put up 66 points this week. If you double my score, I would have lost to half the league still. I think I'm 0-3 in that league. So take whatever I'm saying right now and just throw it out the window and just do the opposite. But I mean, come on, Patrick Mahomes and Lamar Jackson in the first round, that's what is that? You don't draft a quarterback in the first round. Anyways, 0-3. Versus the Bills, Steelers. Oh, they got Dolphins there. Everyone has a bye week that plays the Dolphins this year. But the next couple games for the Browns are not looking like whether they're winnable or close games. It could look a lot like it has in the past couple seasons. And you've already started hearing like Jarvis Landry get mad at reporters at his locker and everything. Like, and when people are winning, then it's just confidence. But if you don't have like a proven track record, it's like cockiness or arrogance. So it's like Baker Mayfield. If he's winning and he says something, that's fine. When you're Cam Newton, when you're winning, when you're wearing those hats, it's all good. But my man, you have to have a backup outfit in case you lose. You can't be wearing like a spider web on your head with a hat or whatever the hell that was. And I'm a guy, I love that kind of stuff. Like, I love when people do stuff like that. But after a loss, you can't be sitting there with like a sad face on with that outfit. Yeah, I think one of the other interesting things, and I'm going to probably start getting into next week's games, because as awesome as every week is in the NFL, I think the teams last week, a lot of them that won are teams you would have expected to win, and teams that lost are like, okay, yeah, we knew the Dolphins were going to lose. One funny thing that did happen to me, and we were talking about it earlier, from the Patriots and Jets games, the Patriots are up, and they take Tom Brady out. They're up big, and they take Tom Brady out. The backup quarterback, who I don't even remember who it is, he throws a pick six, and then Tom Brady comes back in immediately. So I was saying it would be kind of funny if it's like, whose decision was it to take him out, and whose decision was it to put him back in? Because if it's Belichick, Brady doesn't want to come out. So if Belichick's like, Tom, you're done for the day, go hit the showers, whatever, and Brady's like, no, I want to stay in. He takes him out because, there's always those stories. Brady never wants to come out. And then the guy throws the pick six, and then Belichick's like, Tom, you're back in. He's like, nope, you said I'm out. You said I'm out. You got to ride it out with whoever the hell this guy is, who I don't know his name, but you got to ride it out now. But other than that, I mean, the Dolphins and the Dolphins and Cowboys, we kind of knew that both those games were going to be blowouts. And the Dolphins kind of kept it close for a little bit. My roommate Dan is a Cowboys fan. I'm like looking at him with the side eyes emoji. I'm like, are you going to pull away here? Are you going to cover the spread? Because I have money on you guys. I have teasers. I have things going on here. And he's just like, yes, I fucking know. One of the other interesting games as far as backup quarterbacks or quarterbacks who didn't start week one, the Jaguars with Gardner Minshew. They're paying him, I think, $500,000. He was like a later round pick. They're paying Nick Foles something like $20 million. So if this guy actually winds up being good, we could have, and I'm not comparing Gardner Minshew to Russell Wilson, but if you remember back when the Seahawks had the issue and they signed Matt Flynn, one of those like wanted for robbery in like how many different states, wanted for theft in how many different states, like larceny or grand theft whatever. But so then they draft Russell Wilson like the third or fourth round, and the Seahawks had the wherewithal to say, I don't care how much money we're paying this guy, we're gonna let Russell Wilson play because he's the better quarterback. And I'm not saying he's shown it so far, but if he continues playing like this, there's two interesting things to me about that. Because it was Jacksonville, Tennessee, and obviously we knew the defense was good coming into this season. The two interesting things to me are, if Gardner Minshew has a really good season and keeps playing like this, and he's like a top whatever quarterback, what do you do with Nick Foles? Do they trade him? The contract is not a very good contract. They got Nick Foles because their logic, in my mind, was we're upgrading from a shit quarterback, also known as Blake Bortles, to just like at least an above average quarterback. And that's like the biggest thing in the NFL you can do to make your team to take your team to the next level is upgrade from like subpar quarterback play to above average quarterback play. So if he plays well this season, are they going to try to get rid of Nick Foles? There's always one dumb team out there that will take a bad contract. It's usually like the Raiders or something like that, or like the Redskins. Which, two takeaways. I got to get back to the Jacksonville thing. But let me write this down because I'll forget. But I got to get to the Redskins after I just remind myself of a dumb team. And this is just like the gears turning in my head as I go. The other interesting thing as far as like the Gardner Minshew thing and the Nick Foles thing is, what if the Jaguars are good enough that Jalen Ramsey all of a sudden doesn't want to leave? Because I'm pretty sure he wanted to leave because he thought that they were going to be terrible once Nick Foles went down. But if he's like, it's almost like, is there a way to come back from requesting a trade? Can you say, oh, never mind, I don't want to be traded anymore? Like the guys in the locker room, whatever. And I kind of feel like NFL players nowadays are more on each other's side. Like, get your money, do whatever you got to do. Like, they're not looking at him like, oh, you're giving up on the team or you're giving up on me. They're more in the sense of like, okay, he just wants to get his money and do whatever he wants to do. Yeah, he had issues with management. But winning kind of solves a lot of that stuff. So if it winds up looking like they're going to win the division, they're going to get in the playoffs, what if they're like, okay, fine, we'll trade you to Miami? And then he can obviously have the leverage and say, like, I'm not going to re-sign there, all that kind of stuff. But I just think it's interesting if Gardner Minshew winds up being good enough where they can win some games. Would Jalen Ramsey consider staying there? My thing on the Redskins is, why are you still starting Case Keenum? What's the actual point? You're not gonna. There's teams like are not gonna win the Super Bowl. Lions are one. I don't care if we're undefeated. Giants. We're talking about teams who know they're not gonna win the Super Bowl. The most valuable thing in football is a quarterback on a rookie contract who's actually good. So why are you gonna waste a year of Dwayne Haskins and just go through the motions with Case Keenum and not figure out if Dwayne Haskins is good or not? Because if he is good and you find out right away, you have the most valuable thing in sports, which is a cheap quarterback on a first contract. And if he's not good, you also find out that we need to find a new quarterback, like Arizona felt with Josh Rosen. Whatever you think of Josh Rosen, he hasn't really had that many great opportunities. You're going from the worst team in football to somehow the other worst team in football. It's a bad set of circumstances for him, and some quarterbacks just get lost in that shuffle. Like Josh Rosen could actually be a decent quarterback that never has a career because he started his team on the two worst teams in football. What are the odds that you go from the worst team in football to the next year, the other worst team in football? He could have went anywhere else. Anywhere else, man. But that's my only thing on the Redskins is, why are you wasting time? Just figure it out. Look at Daniel Jones when he comes in. Look at Baker Mayfield when he came in last year. And then even when they wait a couple games, you're still saying they waited too long. So you're saying, what are we doing here with Case Keenum? Just put Haskins in and have Keenum as the backup or whatever. It's just like, you're going to win 8 games for what? What's really the point? Miami, Dallas, I kind of talked about that already. I think the only question from that one, Dallas is actually, people would, if you had to guess, Kansas City has the best offense in football. Technically, from Pro Football Focus and Football Outsiders, according to DVOA, Dallas actually has the best offense in football. And it depends on the teams you played. Like when you play the Dolphins, you're going to get a bump in stats. Everyone is. I think their plus minus is minus 117 or something like that. It's like, if you extrapolate that out over the course of the season, they're going to be negative 800. I think the only question from that game is, are the Dolphins going to go 0-16? Are the Dolphins the worst team ever? I don't really know the answer. I was just asking a question. It's hard to tell. I mean, they looked more competent in the first half against the Cowboys than they had looked in the other games. It's almost like a win when they don't. They're playing against the spread this year, and they actually didn't cover anyways. But not every game is going to look like the Ravens game, and not every game is going to look like the Patriots game. And honestly, if you're a Miami fan, the smart Miami fan is hoping that they lose at this point. And I hate the old argument if you're a fan, you root for your team to win. It's like, yeah, maybe before we knew about analytics and how things work. If I'm rooting for my team to win and it's going to get me a worse draft pick, then what am I really doing? Just so I can say I'm rooting for my team to win? Cool. You won 3 games. Now you have the 4th pick. Minnesota, Oakland, not much from that one. Baltimore, Kansas City was a really good game, like everybody thought it was going to be. Kansas City's going to beat a lot of people this year, and they're going to be tough to beat. The Steelers, who just traded, actually, speaking of the Dolphins, for Minka Fitzpatrick last week, it looked like he had injected a shot of life into himself. He had a interception and a forced fumble, so it immediately looks like it's working out for the Steelers. Mason Rudolph didn't really play that well, and on the flip side of that trade, it could turn out that pick is better than the Steelers thought. And I heard an interesting take, I think it was Bill Simmons that said it, how come the NFL doesn't do the same thing that the NBA does, which is the Steelers are trading the Dolphins a first-round pick, but it's top 5 protected. So if it falls in the top 5, the Dolphins don't get it, it goes to next year's. It's kind of interesting how the crossover is in sports there. I've never heard of that in the NFL. That's the thing I think that I've only heard about in the NBA. Where they don't do and there's not a ton of first round pick swaps going on, and the NBA, it's much clearer who the worst teams are going to be. Houston and the Chargers, not much of a takeaway. The same kind of thing as every week. Phillip Rivers down 8 with no timeouts, 30 seconds to go, win us the game. Is there anything I'm missing from that week? Kyler Murray and then Kyle Allen. All right, I will say the game last night, the Monday night game, if Mitchell Trubisky is anything like he was last night, because we know the Bears' defense is going to be awesome, but if Mitchell Trubisky is anything like they were last night, if Chicago scores 31, nobody's beating them. Because if you look at like teams like Kansas City, they scored 33 against Baltimore. You're not scoring 33 against the Bears. And Khalil Mack just like continues over and over again to say why the Bears won that trade. And you can say all you want about the draft picks, and you can't say no to a guy or like the whole Jalen Ramsey thing. I think the closer you are to the ball, the more you actually affect the game. And I'm not the first one to say that. But if you're a corner, like the best thing that you can do is be anonymous, like nobody's throwing at you. If you're Khalil Mack, you can literally change the game whether they're going towards you or not. You can force fumbles, you can still have picks, you have sacks, there's so much more that a defensive end or a linebacker, whether you're in the 3-4 or the 4-3, so much more that those guys can do. But I'm going to get into next week's games now. I'm just going to go kind of down the line, talk about the matchups and then the spreads and everything. So if you want to get out your pen and paper and your gambling pads, whatever I say, just do the opposite. Because honestly, by the time Sunday comes around, I'm probably going to do the opposite as well. I'll start with Packers and Eagles. Packers at home -5. So the Packers have a really good defense, and if it continues that way, like you have Aaron Rodgers, who hasn't even played his best this season, and the Lions just beat the Eagles. So I would say it is a Thursday night game, so those are always weird. I tend to want to take the under in Thursday night games because everyone's just like beat up, and the Eagles are already beat up. So if you're going to take the spread, I would say Packers -5 is a pretty good bet, especially because they're at home. It's a short week, but the Eagles are also, they were on a short week before, and now they're on a short week again. So that's back-to-back short weeks for the Eagles. So that means the Eagles will probably win by like 10. But I would take the Packers in that one. You have Panthers and Texans. Texans at home -4. Kyle Allen actually looked pretty good too. He looked like, now I don't think like some people there's going to be a quarterback controversy once Cam Newton comes back, because healthy Cam Newton is better than healthy Kyle Allen. But he's good enough that they have time to wait on Cam Newton. I would not bet this game at all. It's Texans -4. I don't trust the Texans at all. Like every game they play is going to be interesting. If they have Packers by 5 for sure. Hey, what up, Chuck? Packers by 5. Yeah, that one. But the Texans you can't trust, because if the Texans are ahead, they're going to blow the lead. But if the Texans are behind, they're going to come back. So every game's going to be close. Browns-Ravens. I haven't looked at all the games so far, but out of those, this is like the game of the week. It's a must-win game for the Browns, right? Like, let's do that sports radio thing. Must-win game. That's one of my favorite things too. It's like, did this team win or did this team lose? It's like, well, technically both those things are true because one team won and one team lost. Did the Saints win the game or did the Seahawks lose it? It's like, well, both. They both happened. I get the premise of it. Texans by 4. I don't know if he's saying facts to what I'm saying or facts to what he's saying as far as Texans by 4. But Browns-Ravens. Ravens are at home. Wow, 7 is a high spread though. People are kind of either giving a lot of love to the Ravens or they're kind of jumping off the Browns bandwagon, which the Browns hype train is derailed and the bandwagon has a flat tire. So I don't know how many more of those I can come up with. It almost makes me want to take the Browns though, but I love Lamar Jackson too much. I wouldn't do that. I would probably do, if you're allowed to, a 6-point teaser. So you pretty much just tease it down to 1, and usually you have to pick at least 2 teams. You tease it down, and it's the same as a regular bet. The Ravens would just have to win. That's tough though, because if the Browns lose that, they're 1-3, and looking at the spread, Vegas is saying like, oh, the Browns are going to lose. You're playing Lamar Jackson at home. That run game, it's still going to be a fun game to watch though. I mean, you have a lot of like fantasy implications, stuff like that. Odell Beckham, Mark Ingram, Lamar Jackson, Baker Mayfield. But somebody in our Traveling Drunks League dropped Baker Mayfield after 1 week. I was kind of laughing at him at that point, but he hasn't been that great. You got Redskins and Giants. I think the main reason that you would want to watch this game is, this game would actually be awesome if it was Dwayne Haskins versus Daniel Jones. I go back to it again. I have no interest in watching Case Keenum play football. Like he's like. When we talk about, and we talk about it sometimes in baseball, it's like the replacement player. That's Case Keenum. It should just say replacement player on the back of his shirt. It's like wins above Keenum. It's just less fun. I want to, as much as I hate Ohio State, I want to see Dwayne Haskins against Daniel Jones. And you would have thought that this would be a game where they might do it.
Should be.
You're playing against the Giants. I mean, the only reason that it's fun to watch is the offense. The Giants' defense is shit. What was the spread? I didn't even say that one. Giants minus 2.5. I wonder what it would have been before last week, before Daniel Jones actually looked good. It probably would have had the Redskins favored, honestly. It probably swung the line that much. You have Chargers and Dolphins. Do you have the spreads in front of you, Stretch?
I can.
No. Don't look it up. What do you think the Chargers are favored by against the Dolphins?
2 touchdowns.
3?
Yeah.
16.5. 16.5. It almost seems like the Dolphins are going to be 2 touchdown underdogs no matter who they're playing. Like, what even? Who's the second worst team? Jets? What if it was? Oh, well, we don't even have to wonder because the Jets are going to play the Dolphins. What do you think that spread's going to be? I mean, is it with the quarterback? If they have Darnold, the Jets are definitely favored. And it depends where they're playing. But if it was like neutral field with the quarterbacks they have now, both of them. Pick 'em? It's a pick 'em? I wouldn't even know. I know. Is that a game you definitely don't want to watch or a game you definitely do want to watch? Just because of how bad it is. I don't know. But Chargers minus 16. Do whatever you want with that. It's tough to cover that many scores in the NFL, as you can clearly see that I won a good deal of money last week. I had a comeback from the week before. But I would have won more. The Patriots didn't cover because, as we said, they put in their backup quarterback, and immediately he said, "This is why Tom Brady cannot rest." He's kept up at night by that pick 6. Yeah, I can't. Colts and Raiders. Colts are at home minus 6.5. I like the Colts a lot, but that's kind of a lot of points to be giving Jacoby Brissett, who I think is a little bit. Not that he's not good, but I don't know if he should be giving up a touchdown pretty much to the Raiders, unless you think the Raiders actually just really suck. Probably a game I wouldn't bet on. Probably a stay away. A game I definitely will be betting on, and call me what you want. Call me a shitty fan. I'm going to be taking the Kansas City Chiefs on the road minus 6.5 against the Lions. So if the Lions win, then hey, the Lions won. But if they lose, they're definitely going to lose by more than 6.5. Which is a pretty good number of points to be giving on the road. So the Lions are technically undefeated. That tells you what they think. Oh, Steelers. This is what the people who make the lines think about the Chiefs-Lions game. It's almost the same situation. Actually, the same. Chiefs are on the road against the Lions. Patriots are on the road against the Bills. Patriots are giving up 7 to the Bills. Chiefs are giving up 6.5 to the Lions. So they're saying the Lions are to the Chiefs what the Bills are to the Patriots. And I kind of agree. Both teams are technically, I keep having to say technically because we tied. Both teams are undefeated, but we both know who the 2 top teams are in those matchups. Either one of those. The same thing you can do with a teaser. That's why I like teasers so much, because it's pretty much like taking 2 teams, you change the line by 6 points, and you have to win both, and you win the same as if you were to play one game. But if you can't pick a game by changing the line by 6 points, then you shouldn't really be picking the game anyways. And I say that as I lose a lot of my teasers. The one I just said, Patriots, Bills. I really want to take the Bills just because I want the Bills to win that game so bad. If the Bills are 4-0 and they're leading the division and they just beat the Patriots so they have the tiebreaker, how awesome would that be? The Josh Allen buzz would be big. Tennessee Titans, Atlanta Falcons, Atlanta -4. This game sucks. I don't want to watch it. I don't want to bet on it. Neither of these teams are good. Go down from here. Rams Bucks. Rams -10, and the Rams are at home, so the Bucks have to travel west. And Jameis has not looked good this season. He just got beat out by a rookie quarterback. Then you're gonna have Aaron Donald, which is a lot different than anybody you saw from the Giants defense. 10's a lot of points, but it just depends. I don't know. That's very good analysis. I don't know. What are you gonna do? Seahawks Cardinals. That's really actually a fun game because Kyle Allen actually reminds me a lot of Russell Wilson. Not saying that he's as good as him, but in the way that he moves in the pocket and the way that he can like scramble out of things. And sometimes it's to his detriment because you'll scramble 10 yards back and sometimes you get out of it and sometimes you give up a 10-yard sack and then it goes from 3rd and 8 to 3rd and 18. And then that's the end of your drive. Seahawks -5. I have no idea with the Seahawks, like I said earlier. When they're at home, all their games are closer than they should be, and then they'll go on the road. I think the Cardinals actually might be a lot worse than people think, though. Because if you think back to it, in Week 1, they were down to the Lions. The Lions, they were down by like 17 points. In last week, they were down to... Who did they play last week? The Panthers? Or I don't know. They've been down double digits in a lot of their games, in all their games. So this could be the week where the Seahawks come in and show everybody like, oh, actually the Cardinals suck. Bears-Vikings. I was going to say don't even look at the total and take the under. The total in this game is 38.5. That's like a Michigan State total. that was like a Michigan State Northwestern total. That's super low. So I wouldn't just blindly take it, especially if you want like to root for anything that's fun to happen. But Bears defense, Vikings. Bears -2.5 at home. They're going to be on a short week, but like I said, if the Bears defense is what we think it is, and whatever happened last night with Trubisky, if that continues, then you have a solid team in the Bears that could definitely contend in the NFC. Jaguars and Broncos. Immediately, I just look at this and I say, don't even take the 3 points. It's Denver -3. Don't even bother with the 3 points with the Jaguars. Take the Jags on the money line. Because the Broncos suck, and the Jags are going to win that game. Book it. Put it down here. Stone cold lead pipe locks. Yeah, and then the Broncos are going to win by 30 points. No, but come on. I mean, it's Joe Flacco. How many times do we have to like watch Joe Flacco to realize he's not good anymore? I realized it after they went for the 2 points, and then they let Trubisky come back. And I lost that bullshit where it takes 1 second to fall down and call a timeout. Cowboys and Saints. And I'm still getting used to the injuries because you look at that game and you're like, okay, that's a Sunday night game. Saints at home. It's going to be really cool. Drew Brees and, oh wait, Drew Brees is hurt. Damn it. Yeah, Teddy Bridgewater looked all right and everything like that, but it's actually Cowboys -2.5. And you kind of want to give the Saints some credit for being at home there. The last game, which actually, that's still a good Sunday night game. The Bengals and Steelers. Steelers -4, so they're really telling you that they think the Bengals are terrible, which they probably are, but how are you going to give Mason Rudolph 4 points? Or give up 4 points with Mason Rudolph? Either way, I think my stone cold lead pipe lock of the week would be the Jags. So go ahead and put all the money you have on the Broncos. We'll get more into baseball next week, and then probably never talk about college football again because my season's over. And anyone who watches UCF, your season's over too. So congrats for all of us. Everyone suffer like me. And welcome to the Bundesliga.